Um, so hopefully I didn't lose anybody after that. So hey guys, how you doing? Good to see you. I'm Tania Yager from Twisted Heart Puppet Works, and I am fulfilling what I feel like is my life's calling, and how I'm going to spend, I don't know, the rest of my days here in Vista by endeavoring to do Krampus runs. Give me 1 second. There was some link difficulties. People trying to get on, and I don't know why the one on Facebook wasn't working. All right. This person, I really want to be here.
The new link did work, just so you know.
What's that?
The new link did work.
Yeah, okay, great. Good. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. People will probably be joining us as we go. And I'm gonna share my screen. I had the best time actually putting together this PowerPoint presentation. And I'll take questions at the end through chat. And we'll, actually, you guys, I think I give you the ability to unmute yourselves, so that's fine. Give me a second. Technology. Thought I had this all figured out. It did have it.
While we're waiting, might I make a small advertisement for the screenplay that Salvador Dali and Harpo Marx made, and it never got turned into a movie, called Giraffes on Horseback Salad. It's actually a graphic novel of the screenplay. It's quite interesting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jason. I'm having just all kinds of issues right now. Okay. Now I think I can do what I need to do. Can you guys see this? See this PowerPoint? Awesome. Cool, thank you. Thanks for bearing with me. It's been a minute since I've done a meeting on Zoom. Okay. So we'll get this going. All right. So as I said, those of you who just joined us, I'm Tania Yager. I am covering some informational stuff and just kind of planning in the planning stages for what I'm calling the Wild Hunt of Vista, which is essentially a Krampus run in Vista for the Dark Christmas Market on December 10th. So sorry, I'm letting a bunch of people in. So December 10th, the market will be from 4 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. and the Krampus run is through the market and downtown Vista, and we're going to start at 7:30 p.m. And I just want to reiterate, I got some really multiple people asking the cutest questions about this because they were not necessarily really familiar. It's called a Krampus run, but no, this is not a 5K. You do not have to run. I don't run. I don't run unless something's chasing me. So yeah, you don't have to run. It's just what it's called. It is a procession. So let's kick this off. First, before I say anything else, I want to pay homage to my friend and the author of The Krampus and the Old Dark Christmas, Al Radnauer. He wrote this book, and it is honestly the encyclopedia of Krampus and winter spirits. And if you are interested in Krampus lore and you want to delve a little bit deeper and you don't have this book, I would really, really encourage you to do that. And if you dig this type of lore, and want to hear more of what Al does, you can find him on Bone and Sickle podcast, which is pretty awesome too. And he just is a huge inspiration of mine. And that book, for me, has a ton of earmarks and, like dog ears and like underlines and notes and stuff like that. And it is part of the reason why my husband and I went to Germany in 2018 to actually experience a true Krampuslaufen or Krampus run. So let's talk about a little bit about what is a Krampus run. So this is a traditional Yuletide parade called a Krampuslauf or Krampuslaufen, which in English translates to Krampus run, in which primarily young men participate dressed as the Krampus, and they attempt to scare the audience with their antics. And this usually occurs annually in most Alpine towns and across Germany, Austria, Northern Italy, and that's all traditionally. But now they're happening in places like Canada and different places in the US. And the Krampus character is featured heavily in these processions. So it's almost all Krampuses. But other cultural winter spirits, things like the Welsh Lywds, which we'll talk a little bit about later, different Christmas witches, and other dark Yule folk characters often make appearances in these particular parades. And I want to let everybody know that that is certainly not going to be an exception here at the Wild Hunt of Vista. Part of the reason why I'm calling it the Wild Hunt and not just the Vista Krampus Run is because I'm welcoming all winter spirits. So just want to get that out there. So why in the world would somebody do this? Why in the world do people do this? And I wanted to go into a tiny bit of the lore before we get into costuming ideas and details. So this goes back to Bavarian and Alpine traditions from the 12th century, that far back, so it's centuries old. Typically, it is in response to and celebration of December 6th, which is St. Nicholas Day in Germany. And in the Germanic countries are primarily Catholic, and so they celebrate different saints, and St. Nicholas Day is on December 6th. And so essentially what would happen is you would have these December 5th or St. Nicholas Eve plays and different house visits where a procession would go from house to house, or street processions, which they do now. And sometimes there was even brawls in the street between different Krampus groups. And all of this, there was just a lot of havoc and visiting of different homes. All of these things happened traditionally on December 5th, which is St. Nicholas Eve. So this was a way for, kind of to give out in one particular town, if you had a small town of folks and they were going from door to door, way back when, this was a way for good kids to get rewarded with little gifts. And for kids who needed little talkings to, and maybe were giving their parents hell, it was a way to instill them with a certain amount of terror, and maybe they'd get little swats. There, as with every, I think, folk tradition, there's a certain amount of children's cautionary tale that goes into it. And so, yeah, I mean, it was essentially to reward the good kids and to let the bad kids know that they were on notice and that there was definitely consequences for their actions. And as a parent, I approve this message. And that's probably why I'm so excited about Krampus. Little bit of history and the origins of where this came from. So the Krampus figure has been theorized as stretching all the way back to pre-Christian traditions. And I went ahead and put a quote in here by an anthropologist named John Honigmann from Austria. And he said, this is when he was actually looking at his observations in Austria in the 70s. And he said the St. Nicholas festivals they were describing incorporated cultural elements widely distributed in Europe. So they were kind of all over the place. And in some cases, going back to pre-Christian times, Nicholas himself became popular in Germany around the 11th century. And then masked devils acting boisterously and making nuisances of themselves have been known in Germany since at least the 16th century, while animal masked devils combining dreadful comic antics appeared in medieval church plays. So Austrians in the community that we studied are quite aware of the heathen elements being blended with Christian elements in the St. Nicholas customs and in other winter ceremonies. And they believe that the Krampus derived from a pagan supernatural being who was then later assimilated into what we know as kind of like the stereotypical Christian devil. And the Krampus figure persisted, and by the 17th century, Krampus had been incorporated into Christian winter celebrations. And they paired up the Krampus with St. Nicholas. So here is a wonderful old picture. And I'd like to explain to you a couple of the different characters in here that are very, very traditional in a Krampus kind of retinue. So this would be the type of group that would go from house to house, knocking on people's doors, and having parents like maybe pin notes to the doors about who in their family was good and wanted, they wanted them to be rewarded, and who maybe needed a talking to or a whipping from Krampus, and maybe what they had done, good deeds and bad deeds that they had done, so that the whole group was aware when they went inside the house who they were targeting and what they would say to them. And so there was this air of like, oh, St. Nicholas knows and the Krampus knows, and because they're always watching, if that sounds familiar. So this would be our St. Nicholas character, this gentleman in the pointy hat. These two people alongside him, the small guy here and this guy here, just would be assistants of his. You'll notice a couple of people dressed these kind of like alpine mountain men, these alpine mountain men with baskets, and they're called traditionally basket bearers. Basket bearers served two purposes. One was to actually keep possibly gifts in to give children, and these larger baskets were to threaten to put children in. And sometimes the Krampuses wore them, and sometimes these kind of mountain men basket bearers wore them as well. You can see behind here, these are our Krampuses. And actually what this picture is telling me is that this picture is probably more from an Austrian area rather than a German or Bavarian area, because of the identification of the multiple horns. And we'll get into that later. And then there's some of these other mountain men. These almost look like they might be, I don't know, this guy looks like he has a gun, I'm not sure. But I also want to, oh, it wasn't in this one, it was in a different picture, I'll point it out. I don't know who this guy in white is back here. He's creeping me out. Anyway, they shipped them together, and now they are forever BFFs. They go together. This is a really great old vintage picture of a very old Krampus. And then of course, St. Nicholas, and this looks like a basket bearer on the side here. So these are a couple of pictures from my life when we went to Munich, one of the largest Krampuslaufens in Germany and in the world. And I can tell you that I, with my husband, stood there for, it must have been 2 hours, and we did not see the end of the parade. We caught the whole first beginning of the parade all the way into like 2 hours, and they were still coming. I went ahead and put these in here. Number one, I put this one in here because you can see the joy on my face. So this is what being at a Krampuslaufen makes me feel, just pure and ecstatic joy. I love this picture of my husband here. You can see here all the really, really different and intricate Just really different styles of Krampuses. And that's one of the things that I love about it, is that people get so into their costumes, into their cosplay, really, really into the different variations of the Krampuses. And I do love that they really do mess with kids. So you would have these large groups, which are called Krampus passes, or a Krampus group. And the different Krampus passes could have anywhere from 5 to 25 to 50 Krampuses in them. And they would be regional passes or regional groups that were coming from different areas. So one town might have a Krampus pass that was 50 people strong. Another town might have a Krampus pass that was 100 people strong. And depending on how long they had been together, some of these Krampus groups had been together for a really long time, and they would usually have a sign bearer in the front that would say something like Munich Krampus Pass, and the date in which they originated. And some of these Krampus passes, the dates, I was astounded by how far back they went. So really, really great. So a Krampus run, by other names, you might hear of Perchtenlauf. A Perchtenlauf is traditionally an Austrian word, Perchten. So a Perchten is a Krampus-like, very, very similar to the Krampus, but the difference between the Perchten and the Krampuses is that Krampus really is coming from one particular Bavarian area, right, in Germany. And some of these others are coming from Northern Italy and then primarily Austria. And this is a Perchten here. And the way that you can figure that out is the Perchten have more than 2 horns. A lot of times they have anywhere from 4 to 6 horns or more, whereas a traditional Krampus from Germany would have only 2 horns. So we'll see lots of pictures in here where we've got Perchten or we have the traditional Krampus. And then another name for a Krampus-like character comes from the US, and it's called Belsnickel. Your Belsnickel is a Pennsylvania Dutch term and kind of Krampus-like character. And it's literally a form of the Krampus tradition that was brought to the Americas by German immigrants. So here are some really wonderful traditional costumes. We've got, it looks like both of these pictures are from Austria. And the way that we can tell is the 4 to 6 horns. This would be from a Perchtenlauf. And so again, we've got our traditional character of St. Nicholas here, all of his Krampuses or his Percht, and then there's a bearer, a basket bearer here. And then this particular individual, a lot of times St. Nicholas was accompanied by an angel or a Christkinder, which would be like a representative of the Christ child. And this looks like another basket bearer over here with his big, long, fuzzy, ruggy beard. Looks like he literally has a rug on his face, which is pretty funny. But you can notice some of these traditional costumes. All of these costumes are just they've got big woolly coats or woolly coveralls that they've made. Some of them just have really, really long coats that are fastened together with belts, and then they've got big furry boots on, and those are wooden carved masks. And then of course they have their birch sticks for whipping people and little children. We've got, I want to move this a little bit so that you can see these traditional wooden masks. These are vintage traditional wooden masks. You can see there's a lot going on here, but there's not a lot going on here. Very simple eye holes for the eyes. The mouth is open so that the person can breathe. And then it's just this wooden carving on the outside. And some of them do have fur attached to them. Most of them had fur within, and sometimes they had, you know, like sculpted wood carved beards, and then sometimes they would actually attach fur. So these are very, very traditional, and not as hyper real as we'll see later on. So this is where we start getting into a little bit more contemporary traditional. I'm calling it contemporary traditional because these are contemporary photos, but these folks have taken some greater pains to make sure that their costuming was a little bit more traditional. So we can see in each one of these, they've got, you know, kind of those big heavy fur coveralls. This guy looks like he's done a really good job with some like kind of woolly sheep's fur. These all look to be traditionally hand-carved wooden masks. I love this one, the guy with the long jaw. I've never seen a Krampus mask like that, so I had to put him up there. He was really great. So I love all of these. It gives you a really, really great idea of how to do something that harkens back to the traditional, but is very modern and up to date. Moving on from there, I want to talk a little bit about modern contemporary costumes. And I'll give you lots of costuming ideas. Part of the reason why I wanted to start early is because there are people who literally spend years and thousands of dollars putting together some of these amazing costumes. And you can tell it really does show. But I want to let you know that even though we're starting early, the expectation is not that you spend thousands of dollars or years, because we don't have years. But you could start your collection now, because I plan on doing this again in the future. You can kind of start your collection now, and yeah, there's a lot of things that can be done on a smaller budget. And then if you decide that you love this so much and it's something that you really want to pursue later on, you can, you know, be sending away for more expensive pieces. So I love what people are doing here. These are great photographs. This guy in the center really does have his kind of like harkening back to his tradition with the very heavy fur suit. But then this is a very contemporary interpretation of a Krampus mask. It looks like it's a separate headpiece, and then with a mask that kind of goes onto the face here. Love these ladies behind, the drummers, you know, in their leathers and their fabrics, and then, you know, doing themselves up with their headpieces. This is not traditional at all, but it gives you the idea, and it's a wonderful nod. And then this guy, I just had to put on there because, God, I don't think there's anything more scary than a Krampus that looks like a murderous clown. So he's really got it going. He's very effective, very contemporary. This is my friend John and some of his friends from up in Krampus Seattle. They have been working very hard to get their Krampus pass or their Krampus group together in Seattle and go and spread the Krampus cheer. Recently, they went to Leavenworth, Washington, which is supposed to be like a Christmas village in Washington, and they got booted out, which was really sad. I was very sad about that. Lots of people really loved them, and it's a very, I guess, conservative place, and there was a lot of people that complained that they didn't want Krampuses ruining their Christmas town. Boo. Anyway, wonderful, wonderful example of what is traditional and contemporary. This is where we start seeing the contemporary portion being very hyper real, kind of horror realistic masks. These are all masks that were made by traditional Krampus mask makers that have, you know, been passed down from generation to generation out of Austria. They are all wood carved, but you can see that they are much more contemporary than some of those older, more traditional ones. But these guys really doing it upright with their fur coveralls. But again, taking, a little bit more of a new contemporary spin on it, because traditionally the colors for a Krampus would be black or brown, not necessarily the white and ice blues that you're seeing here, but they look fantastic. A couple other pictures that we have from them as well. I point this out because men primarily in the past have been the Krampuses, and we are not going to, say that we need to stay traditional with that, because I'm all about, gender inclusivity. I love pointing this out. This is my friend John's wife. He just had her Krampus mask made. So this is a lady Krampus here. And this is in Leavenworth just this past year. Also, this character here is not a Krampus. That's a Frau Percha. And we're going to talk about her in just a little bit. I also put this one up here because you can see the very traditional St. Nicholas. And then I love this, definitely looks like it's wood carved. They can be wood carved. Some of them are made out of resin, but this definitely looks like it's wood carved. And I love the downward sloping horns, not an upward sloping horn in sight. I love this mask with the downward sloping horns. People just get so creative, and I love that. Here's a couple of other ones that are super creative. This one I showed earlier. This is another example. This was a young woman, probably teenager and female. And I love that. We saw a few females when we went to the Munich Krampus run. And I love her whole deal. Also a really great way to just kind of let you guys know that you do not have to have a mask in and of itself. This is makeup and prosthetics with horns attached. And then we've got this mask, really, really cool coloring. And again, the downward sloping horn, which I am just always so fascinated by. So when you are making a Krampus outfit or a Perchten outfit, or any kind of outfit, I think for the up and coming Wild Hunt, one of the things that I really am going to beg you to do and want to encourage you to do is make sure that you are putting bells and noisemakers on your person. You can always hear a Krampus before you see a Krampus. The Krampuses were probably, I don't know, not necessarily a mile, but they were quite a ways down the Christmas market, down the street. And we heard them before we could see them because of the ringing of the bells. And these aren't just small bells. These are these very large cowbells. These are very large, old kind of vintage cowbells. Not suggesting that you go out and pay hundreds of dollars for a vintage cowbell that looks like this. But I will tell you, these are not vintage. This picture right here on the left is literally something that I screenshot from Amazon. And you can get them on Amazon for anywhere from, $14 to $20. And just a few of them will do. And, if you're really working on a budget, there's nothing wrong with going to Michael's or the dollar store at Christmas time and getting a bunch of smaller silver bells and making yourself almost like, like a leather belt or something like that that has bells around it. But you gotta make noise if you're gonna be in a Krampus parade. That's just the deal. So besides the bells, which are a huge, huge, huge thing, there's a couple of other very traditional costuming accoutrements. So if you are going to be a Krampus or a Perchten, or even give a nod to the Krampus, I think the most important thing is the horns, horns, horns. I don't care if they swoop down. I don't care if they swoop up. I don't care if there's one big one or six, other ones that go in different directions. It's important to wear horns. If you are portraying, something like a Perchten or a Krampus. Baskets are supposed to be for the bad kids. And I love this guy. He came pre-prepared with his bad kid on his back. And that's fantastic. I'm loving his commitment to carrying this kid through the Krampuslaufen, because it has to be hot, wearing all that stuff and lugging the kid around too. Chains are very traditional, having, different chains coming across, or, dragging chains behind them as a prop. That's very, very traditional. And then of course the bells, we know all about that. Stick bundles or horsehair whips. The stick bundles, used to be a little bit larger and they used to really do some damage. And now they've gotten to be some of those kind of like cinnamon broom type situations, so that they're not really, when they're going to whip people in the crowd, they're usually just going for their legs, and their little taps. The idea is, you're not quite sure, is this a punishment or is it kind of like a blessing from the Krampus? It's seen as both. And there's people that don't want to be whipped by the Krampus, and then there's people that will willingly throw themselves in front of the Krampus to kind of get that blessing, or really it's a photo op. The horsehair whips came in when several years ago there was this kind of resurgence of Krampuslaufens in Germany, and the more PC kind of like, we don't want to scare the kids too much or cause too much disruption or violence, they really wanted them to kind of transition from sticks that really hurt people, maybe that were a little thicker, to these horsehair whips that you're going to get a little lashing, but you're not going to feel it as much. And then cages. I have seen everything from large scale floats with big cages with Krampuses in them, or Krampuses walking with big cages with children in them. I have seen people dragging wagons that they've made a makeshift cage and put a kid in, or a little animal. I have a couple of friends of mine that I'm hoping will be lady Krampuses and then put their significant others in cages. Yeah, so cages are a big thing too. And then stabs are walking sticks. And I'm not just talking about your run of the mill, I've got a walking stick that I'm just going to go hike the trails with. These are usually something that is very, very nature inspired, that looks like an awesome nature staff, or it's something that is, like, I don't know, looks like it came out of the depths of hell or something. It's just, they're really, really impressive. So people really go in the extra mile with their accoutrements and their accessories. And I encourage you to do that, because that is definitely what makes a Krampus. I want to give you some alternate costuming ideas. A lot of these particular photographs were taken from the Krampus balls. There's a couple of different Krampus balls that happen around the US and then also in Canada. One of them, the primary one, is in Toronto, and another one is Krampus LA, which is hosted by Al Radnor the last several years. And of course, he hasn't done it the last 2 years because of COVID. And I don't know if he's going to do it this year. So these are some alternative kind of Krampus-like, or they're giving a nod to the Krampus that I think are totally acceptable if you didn't want to go full furs and mask. This one on the left-hand side, lovely lady. She's obviously wearing some sort of flowy dress, and she's giving the nod to the nature spirit, the horned nature spirit of the Krampus through her antlers. I love that. So if that's more your speed, that's totally okay. This guy, I don't know what's going on, but he's got leathers and he's got these big, I don't know what those are called, like pauldrons, and his, holly leaves and this amazing mask that doesn't really look like a Krampus at all. But whatever he's doing, it's working. And then leading these ladies who are looking like the club Krampuses, which is totally fine. Like if that's your jam, that's totally fine. As long as lots of effort is put into the finished product. You know, there's tons of interpretations, and I want people to feel free to be creative. A lot of the more contemporary costumes really kind of have this mix of fur or leather and different fabrics. And you can do a lot. I mean, I personally am not at this point ready or invested in Southern California with as hot as it's starting to get year after year, even on December 10th, in going and getting a full coverall suit of fur. But I have heard it said and read in many articles and books that, you know, what people are doing a lot now is they're doing this thing where they're combining Ren Fair garb with things like furs to really, really great effect. And they've got their masks, they've got some fur, and then they've got a little bit of Ren Fair garb. And they kind of gave them this, this funny nickname, which is like Viking Krampuses. So if you have bits of leather, or if you got some leather pants or a crazy utility kilt, you know, and a cloak or something like that, these are all things that you can kind of incorporate and play with. And then maybe you go, you know, you get a little fur thing and put it on, and you've got your, you know, your mask on if you're making a mask or you're purchasing a mask. I also love this guy. This is from the Krampus Ball in LA. You know, he's got his kind of like Renaissance garb on. He has a cloak on, and he's got his hat, no mask required, with the horns up in it, which is great for people who wear glasses. I actually am married to somebody who wears glasses, and one of his complaints about wearing masks is that he can't see, and he's going to want to see all the colorful and creative things that people are going to do. And so this is a really great alternative for folks like that, and folks that just don't want something on their face for an extended period of time. Again, you know, this is, there's so many makeup tutorials on YouTube. It's really fantastic. I wanted to show you guys, all of these folks have horns on. I just had to cut them off for the picture. So these are all examples of Krampus makeup, no masks. Again, really great for people who wear glasses or just don't want something super heavy on their head or on their face. Some people are prone to, you know, headaches and things like that, and don't necessarily want the pressure on their head either. Or they don't want to go out and buy a big, huge mask or have to make one. So these are really fantastic looks. I love this one on the left, and this guy with his, you know, whole kind of like Loki vibe is, I'm really digging on him. So we do have somebody that I'm talking to right now about doing a group. It's a makeup artist who has said that they could probably do a group that day of like 10 to 15 people. And so starting a group where people pay and they show up at a particular time, they get their makeup done and at a particular location, and they've paid to have it professionally done, and then they can walk. So trying to see if I can get that together. But again, tons of tutorials. And this is just, I mean, this is great. This guy is using prosthetics. You know, it looks like there's some prosthetic eyebrows, a prosthetic nose, and prosthetic ears. He definitely looks like he's got a wig on. So this is a different alternative. And this lady with her awesome contacts and her great makeup job. So lots of good stuff. So rounding everything out with our kind of like other winter spirits, you know, as I said, you don't necessarily have to come dressed as a Krampus. If there's another winter spirit that kind of calls to you, or if you're like, whoa, I didn't even know there were other winter spirits, what is this all about? We'll do a tiny bit of education on that, and then you can go look it up. So there's lots of winter Christmas time witches, which is really interesting. I love that. So this is Frau Perchte, right? So she's part of a Perchten, like the mother of the Perchten, or mother of monsters, if you will. Frau Perchte is, I love this little girl with her, just so surprising to see that angelic face with this gorgeous mask. Frau Perchte is this character who visits your home during Yuletide, and my husband loves this because he's very fastidious. If the dishes are not done, and specifically the laundry and the spinning, right? The spinning has not been done, then she will cut open your belly and put rocks in it, or some other such thing. So there is a tradition of leaving things like offerings like porridge and drinks out for Frau Perchte, because she's going to come to your kitchen and make sure everything is clean. And if it's not, and take your offerings. And if it's not, then you may find yourself with a big slit in your belly. And Frau Holle is kind of the opposite of her. I love this piece of art here. I don't know if you can see, this piece of art is literally, one side is Frau Perchte and the other side is Frau Holle. And Frau Holle is like, she's the opposite side. She's, the good witch versus the bad witch. She has this perception of or this personification of like, almost like the cross between a mother goose and a good Christmas witch, like Glenda, Christmas style. So that is some of our German and Austrian winter Christmas witches. And then in this picture, we've got on the left-hand side, the Italian witch, La Befana. And La Befana is this wonderful character, lots of different really great Italian lore about her, this character who rides around on her broom, and she gives children, she gives them gifts, essentially. So riding around all of Italy, giving them gifts, supposedly looking for the Christ child. And then on opposite of that is the Icelandic Grýla and her Yule lads. This is Grýla over here. I don't know if you can see her. And this is great because what they've done is they've kind of like made this cosplay, almost like a huge puppet, festival style puppet, walking puppet. Grýla is this Icelandic witch who eats bad little children. And she herself has 13 sons, and that's who this character represents. And the 13 sons are all different mischievous, boys who go crashing into people's homes and, doing all manner of things like, licking your bowls and, slamming your doors and dropping your spoons on the floor and just mischievous types of things. And if they find a child who has been bad, then they abduct them and they take them to their mother, who eats them. She also has a giant cat. So the Yule cat. So this is all Icelandic, Grýla and her Yule lads. So these are other characters that you might see in a more contemporary Krampuslaufen, because they come from other customs, but people are really starting to kind of blend all these things together, which I think is great. The Schnabelperchten, I didn't go back and look at the spelling of that. I hope I got it right. It's either B-B-E-L or B-E-L. So Schnabelperchten. The Schnabelpercht are also known as belly slitters, like Frau Perchte. And you can see them literally with their huge scissors here. In different parts of Austria, it was like these beaked women. They would make these large beaks out of fabric and then put their little scarves on their head and dress in old rags and aprons and bring their brooms along. And it was all about, like, again, is your house clean at Christmas time? And if your house is not clean at Christmas time and the laundry is not done, they will slit open your belly and shove all the dirty remnants, your dirty clothes, your dirty dishes, into your belly. I love these guys. I'm actually kind of obsessed with them, and my husband likes them too. So I don't know, I might dress him up as a Schnabelpercht this year. The Wild Barbaras. The Wild Barbaras are really interesting characters that often show up. This is also Germanic. St. Barbara's Day is December 4th, and there's some bleed over because there's this December 4th, St. Barbara's Day, December 5th being kind of the Krampuslaufen or Krampusnacht, right? Krampus night, and then the 6th being St. Nicholas Eve. And the Wild Barbaras, I'll let you go look up St. Barbara and her story and why they do this, because I don't want to get too much into that. But always the Wild Barbaras are like these witch-like characters that have all natural elements, like their masks are made up of all natural elements. So pine cones and moss and leaves and all kinds of crazy stuff. So these are all really great representations of the Wild Barbaras. So all kinds of cool stuff for you guys to look up. You know, other kind of contemporary type things that you could look at that have, you know, a little bit of a throwback to, you know, ancient Yule celebrations, or things like Ice Queens and Ice Kings, things like Jack Frost, and then just different winter fairies. These are all things that I took off of like Pinterest as really amazing, I think, and innovative costuming and makeup ideas for things if you just kind of wanted to represent the season, but weren't necessarily into, you know, the masks and the horns and, you know, all that type of stuff as well. And I would be remiss in my duties as somebody who has a little bit of Welsh blood to not mention the Welsh Lywds or the Grey Mayors. Lywd literally means gray mare. And so this was an interesting and is an interesting Welsh tradition where these groups would go around and they would be wassailing or going from door to door, asking for food and drink, and bringing a decorated hobby horse, whether it was an actual, you know, kind of whole, you know, horse head that they were holding, or it was a hobby horse, which was a horse, decorated horse skull on a pole with a person holding it like a festival style puppet draped in a sheet. Like you can see this guy is leading here. The idea is that there's a little bit of a riddle off. You kind of don't want them to come in the house, but they need to come in the house. And as soon as you are giving the whole retinue and the entourage food and drink, and you're allowing the Mary Lwyd to come into your home, there's a blessing by the Mary Lwyd to the home. So these are also, like, if you wanted to do something based on that as well, that is a really cool tradition. I have had several people ask me if they can come dressed as Santa Claus. And here's what I'm going to say about that. I am 100% okay having one St. Nicholas. I think it would be wonderful to have a single St. Nicholas in the back of our party, which is where they always are. The horde of Krampuses go before him, and then he comes up as kind of this, you know, benevolent, you know, good figure in the back. So I'm okay with having one, but I definitely do not want a American fat Santa Claus with a big white beard, you know, and his red suit, the commercialized Coke Santa Claus. I really don't feel like he has a place here. That being said, this is a really, really wonderful example of a Father Christmas type costume that we saw at Schloss Drakensberg, which is Castle of the Dragon in Germany. Of course, we had to go to Castle of the Dragon. So, and I just thought he was really wonderful. He kind of fits into this like woodland theme, and the colors he was rocking were really great. And so I'm totally okay with something like that. Really just kind of want to stay away from, you know, big fat Santa Claus and stay a little bit at beings. We're being so non-traditional about kind of the Wild Hunt and, you know, what costumes we're seeing, would like to keep a little nod to St. Nicholas Day and have there be one St. Nicholas in very traditional attire, if it's possible. But Father Christmases are okay, just not Santa Claus. So again, just want to remind you before I stop sharing, we are going forward with the Wild Hunt of Vista. It's going to be in conjunction with Back Fence Society in downtown Vista at the Dark Christmas Market put on by myself and Sarah Spinks of Back Fence Society. It is December 10th. The run will start at 7:30. It's open to the public. Please understand that we will be presenting ourselves to families and in public. And so, you know, as long as we kind of observe I think PG-13 type of situation, and there's nothing too suggestive about some of the outfits, I think, you know, you're well within your rights to be creative. You can always contact me with questions at twistedheartpuppetworks@gmail.com. And please know that I will be holding lots more meetings on Zoom, because I think it's a really easy way for people to kind of, you know, communicate in the community. I'll probably do a workshop or two, maybe putting together some paper mache masks or something like that. I don't know, it kind of depends on how much time I have. And I'm definitely going to do a Facebook page for the Wild Hunt of Vista so that I can be getting people regular social media, and we can post pictures of our costumes as they're coming along. So I would encourage you to work on your costumes and share them, share little bits and pieces about them as you collect and as you make, and go forward. So, and again, just want to point out, this is how delightful my face is. So please come to the Wild Hunt of Vista and dress up and make my face look like this, because nothing would make me happier, truly. All right, I am going to stop share and turn a light on because it just got a little bit dark in here. That's better. Okay. So I think you guys have the ability to unmute yourselves. I can take questions if you have them. I can read things off the chat if you need to, if you need me to. Oops. Any questions?
When's the first time you think there would be another check-in just on how costuming's going or updates for this group?
That is a good question, Chuck. Thank you for asking that. What is it now? It's June. Probably August. Probably a check-in, like another check-in in August. But it would be a little bit more of like really trying to gather a group, maybe sharing a little bit more, some of the same information that was shared on here. I'm also recording it so that I can send it to people. So maybe August or September as another check-in, but really I plan on getting the Facebook page up and running so that people can kind of look at that, and we can be doing lots of check-ins through that. And then I've got some major stuff going on in October. Certainly, very beginning of November is probably going to be a time when I'm really going to shift and start really kind of like, okay, who really is going to drill down and say they're coming, and like, what's going on with costuming and things like that. And as far as costumes go, like, I really am committed to letting everybody really kind of express themselves, with how they would like to, and not be super sticklers on on certain things, but I would love for everybody to just put their whole heart and their whole effort and have it be on point. So, so yeah, and you guys will hear from me definitely, and keep a lookout. I'm pretty good about blasting the heck out of social media and last minute texting people and, you know, things like that. So any other questions? You can, I'm getting a question. Do you see any role for kids that we won't be carrying on our backs? Maybe a little basket bearer. I love that. Yes, I like mini Krampuses are great. I had, we saw a bunch of little mini Krampuses, and that was super fun. You know, there were little angels that traveled with the St. Nicholas. I think, you know, little Jack Frosts, and, you know, I've seen folks dress up their, you know, little girls in like fawn costumes and things like that. I just think, you know, do whatever the adults do, but miniaturize it, you know? And yeah, mini basket bearers is great. One of the coolest things I think about some of these processions, especially when we got, you know, we've gotten into a little bit more of like almost like a Luminoct procession, which is, you know, you have a basket and the basket is full of treats, and maybe the kids are like, you know, handing out bubble gum or, you know, whatever, if that feels okay. So I think whatever you can kind of dream up, that you can miniaturize and put on a kid, like kids are welcome. Absolutely. I also think that it's really wonderful I make Krampus puppets every year. And if somebody wanted to, you know, make Krampus puppets and like, you know, hold them instead of like dress up, that's totally fine as well. I'm good with that. But put the kids in cages and drag them along, you know, in a in a wheelbarrow or something like that. We will, the week beforehand in downtown Vista, be flyering for this event. The week before this, I don't know what the date is, like whatever the Saturday before the event, which is on December 10th, the Saturday before that, we will be flyering all of downtown Vista, because the downtown Vista parade will be happening that day. And so I've committed to being amongst the crowd and handing out, I don't know, I may get dressed up like a Krampus and, you know, walk around and let people know that this is happening, because, you know, I think it would be great if we drew a little bit of a crowd. We're not closing down any streets. So we have to stay committed to sidewalks and within the Christmas market, which is in a parking lot, which we will get permits for. So when we go in the downtown area, we just have to stay on the sidewalks and not obstruct traffic. But really cool if we have people in the restaurants down there specifically going down to dine or just come to the Christmas market because they know that that this is going to happen. So I do think it'll be a pretty big draw. I feel like I was on the right track when I posted something a while back about it, and within 10 minutes got 10 responses from people I didn't even know. So I'm super excited about it. But it's been about an hour now, and I want to let you guys get to the rest of your evenings. If you have any questions, feel free to call, text, you know, get in touch with me on social media, and I will just keep doing my thing. And so thank you so much for being here. Have a good one.
Thanks, Tania.
Bye, guys.